and welcome to Clarity Education Systems. I'm Dr. John Rossi for PMHMPtesting.com, and in this video series, we will discuss the intricate world of neurotransmitters, starting with acetylcholine. As providers, a comprehensive grasp of these chemical messengers is paramount. Neurotransmitters bridge the gap between psychiatry and neurology, weaving a narrative that informs our understanding of mood, cognition, behavior, and their respective disorders. Neurotransmitters are chemical substances produced within neurons. They transmit signals across a synapse or a gap from one neuron to another, enabling a myriad of neural functions ranging from basic reflexes to complex cognitive tasks. Imbalances in neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, GABA, and others have all been linked to various psychiatric conditions, including depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and anxiety disorders. Many psychiatric medications like SSRIs, antipsychotics, and mood stabilizers work by modulating neurotransmitter activity, either by affecting their release, reuptake, or receptor binding. Understanding neurotransmitters reinforces the biological underpinnings of psychiatric disorders. This can help combat stigma by emphasizing that these conditions are rooted in tangible physiological changes, much like disorders in other parts of the body. Key neurotransmitters in psychiatry that will be explored throughout this entire video series include serotonin. This is a multifunctional neurotransmitter synthesized in both the CNS and PNS. It plays a significant role in a wide range of physiological and psychological processes. Here's a quick overview of some of the general functions of serotonin: mood and emotion regulation, appetite and digestion, sleep, cognition, pain modulation, cardiovascular function, temperature regulation, sexual behavior, endocrine regulation, behavior, and aggression. Dopamine is a crucial neurotransmitter in the brain, and it has a multifaceted role across several neural pathways to include reward and pleasure, motor control, regulation of mood and emotional responses, cognition and executive function, endocrine control, modulation of other neurotransmitters, and regulation of nausea and vomiting. Norepinephrine, also known as noradrenaline, is a catecholamine neurotransmitter that plays several essential roles in the brain and body. Some of the general functions of norepinephrine include alertness and arousal, fight or flight response, mood regulation, memory and cognitive functions, control of blood pressure, metabolic regulation, and thermoregulation. Gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, is a major inhibitor neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. It plays a crucial role in balancing excitation and inhibition in the brain, ensuring that neuronal activity does not become excessive and that neuronal circuits operate in a controlled manner. This includes neuronal inhibition, regulation of anxiety, modulation of muscle tone, neural development, sleep regulation, protection against neuronal overactivity, mood regulation, and pain perception. Next, we have glutamate. It's the primary excitatory neurotransmitter within the central nervous system. It does play a critical role in neuronal communication, plasticity, and development. Some of the general functions of glutamate include neuronal excitation, synaptic plasticity, brain development, learning and memory, sensory processing, motor activity, and finally, neurotoxicity. Acetylcholine is a vital neurotransmitter in both the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. It plays several crucial roles in a range of bodily functions. We will dive deeper into this topic in this video. Our role is to understand the fundamental mechanisms that underlie medications. Grasping the complex interplay of neurotransmitters arms us with the knowledge to make informed clinical decisions, educate our patients, and further the field of psychiatric medicine. To get started, we will first take a closer look at our first neurotransmitter, acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a versatile neurotransmitter with roles in various physiological processes in both the peripheral and the central nervous systems. Let's break down the key roles of acetylcholine. As ACH is involved in sustaining attention and alertness, especially in the cortical areas. The basal forebrain contains cholinergic neurons that release ACH into the cerebral cortex, influencing the brain's ability to selectively attend to stimuli. ACH plays a vital role in memory encoding and consolidation. The degeneration of cholinergic neurons in the basal forebrain, which protect the hippocampus and the cortex, is thought to contribute to cognitive decline as seen in Alzheimer's disease. ACH can affect thirst and hydration indirectly. The hypothalamus, which monitors blood osmolality and influences thirst, receives cholinergic inputs. However, the specific role of ACH in thirst is complex and is intertwined with other neurotransmitters and hormones. ACH influences mood, and an imbalance can be associated with mood disorders. This is described as a marked disruption in emotions, where we have severe lows called depression or severe highs called hypomania or mania. ACH levels are high during rapid eye movement or REM sleep, the phase of sleep most associated with vivid dreaming. Cholinergic neurons in the pons in the midbrain are active during REM sleep, facilitating its occurrence. ACH plays a role in sexual arousal by contributing to vasodilation of blood vessels. This is particularly evident in the erectile process in males, where ACH released from parasympathetic nerve endings leads to increased blood flow to the penis. In the PNS, ACH is the neurotransmitter released from motor neurons to stimulate muscle contraction. At the neuromuscular junction, ACH binds to nicotinic receptors on muscle cells, leading to muscle contraction. In the CNS, ACH influences overall muscle tone and coordination, particularly through the actions in the basal ganglia and its interaction with other neurotransmitters like dopamine. Acetylcholine is a multifunctional neurotransmitter that plays critical roles in various cognitive, behavioral, and physiological processes. Imbalances or disruptions in cholinergic systems can lead to a range of disorders and are areas of active research and therapeutic targeting. A deficiency or disruption in the function of acetylcholine can lead to a variety of symptoms due to its diverse roles in the CNS and PNS. Here's a quick breakdown of the symptoms associated with a deficit in acetylcholine. Lack of inhibition. In the CNS, ACH often plays an excitatory role, so a deficit might lead to decreased excitatory signaling within certain pathways. Decreased memory. ACH is crucial for memory formation and retrieval, particularly in areas like the hippocampus. A deficiency can lead to problems with memory consolidation, recall, and learning. Conditions like Alzheimer's disease, which can see a decline in cholinergic neurons in certain parts of the brain, are characterized by significant memory impairment. Euphoria. The direct relationship between ACH and euphoria is not well defined. However, some drugs that have anticholinergic properties can induce euphoric states, suggesting that a reduction in ACH activity might contribute to this sensation in certain contexts. Antisocial action. There is no direct evidence linking ACH deficiency to antisocial behavior. That said, the cholinergic system interacts with various other neurotransmitter systems, which can influence behavior and mood. Decrease in speech. ACH plays a role in the coordination of muscles, including those of speech. A deficit might lead to difficulties in articulation and speech production. Dry mouth, blurred vision, and constipation. These symptoms are classic side effects of drugs with anticholinergic properties. ACH plays a role in stimulating salivary gland secretion. Thus, a deficit can cause dry mouth. Regulating smooth muscle activity in the intestines. A deficit can lead to a slowed gut motility and constipation. And this is also involved in constriction of pupil and lens accommodation. A deficit can cause dilation of the pupil and blurred vision. An excess of acetylcholine in various parts of the nervous system can indeed lead to a range of symptoms. Here's how an overactivity in the cholinergic system can affect the human body. Overinhibition. In the CNS, while acetylcholine often has excitatory actions, it can also mediate inhibitory processes. If there is too much acetylcholine activity, it might cause overinhibition in certain neural circuits. Anxiety. Excessive cholinergic activity can be linked to heightened arousal and increased anxiety. Cholinergic neurons in the basal forebrain, which release acetylcholine in the cortex, play roles in alertness and attention, and an overactivity could lead to feelings of anxiety. Depression. There is some evidence suggesting that hyperactivity in cholinergic systems can contribute to symptoms of depression. For instance, an imbalance between acetylcholine and other neurotransmitters like norepinephrine can influence mood regulation. Somatic complaints. Elevated ACH can lead to various physical symptoms, including gastrointestinal distress, headaches, or heart palpitations. due to its role in the autonomic nervous system. Self-consciousness. This is more complex, as feelings of self-consciousness arise from very different factors, including neurotransmitter imbalances, past experiences, and learned behaviors. While there's no direct evidence linking ACH excess to self-consciousness, it is plausible that the heightened alertness and anxiety from too much ACH could make someone feel inward-focused or self-aware. Drooling. ACH stimulates salivary gland secretion. Excess ACH can lead to hypersalivation or drooling. EPS movements. These are primarily associated with dopamine imbalances, especially due to antipsychotic medications that block dopamine receptors. However, the cholinergic and dopaminergic systems are interconnected. In the basal ganglia, where movement is regulated, an imbalance between these two systems can lead to movement disorders. Excess ACH activity, especially in the context of reduced dopamine activity, might contribute to the EPS symptoms like tremor, akathisia, or dystonia. To understand the role of acetylcholine and the indications we just spoke about, it is important to understand that it acts on two primary receptors. Nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. These receptors are found in the neuromuscular junction of skeletal muscles, autonomic ganglia, both sympathetic and parasympathetic, and in various locations within the central nervous system. They are ion channels, specifically ligand-gated ion channels. When acetylcholine binds to the receptor, the channel opens, allowing sodium and calcium ions to enter in the cell and potassium to exit the cell. In the neuromuscular junction, this leads to muscle contraction. In the brain, activation of this receptor can have excitatory or inhibitory effects, depending on the location and the specific neuronal circuit. Muscarinic acetylcholine receptors. These receptors are mainly found in the central nervous system, heart, smooth muscles, and glands. They are G-protein coupled receptors and not ion channels. This means their effects are mediated through secondary messenger systems inside the cell. The activation of these receptors can lead to a variety of effects depending on the specific subtype of receptor and its location. There are 5 subtypes of these receptors labeled M1 through M5. For example, M2 receptors in the heart reduce heart rate when activated, while M3 receptors in the salivary glands stimulate secretion. Alterations in cholinergic pathways or in acetylcholine levels have been associated with several psychiatric conditions, but it is essential to remember that the neurotransmitter systems in the brain are complex and interrelated. The following are some psychiatric conditions associated with acetylcholine and suspected imbalances. The most documented cholinergic deficit is seen in Alzheimer's disease. Degeneration of cholinergic neurons in the basal forebrain is the hallmark of AD. This reduction in cholinergic activity is believed to contribute to the cognitive and memory deficits. As a result, cholinesterase inhibitors, which increase acetylcholine levels, are commonly used to treat Alzheimer's. When acetylcholine is released into the synaptic cleft, it binds to the receptors, leading to the activation of the next neuron. Once its signaling function is completed, acetylcholine needs to be rapidly broken down by acetylcholinesterase to prevent continuous uncontrolled neuron activation. Cholinesterase inhibitors block the action of this enzyme, which leads to increased levels of acetylcholine in the synaptic cleft. This amplifies the acetylcholine signal, improving communication between nerve cells. The following are cholinesterase inhibitors that have been approved for augmentative treatment for Alzheimer's disease and to help increase acetylcholine. Donepezil. This is one of the most commonly prescribed cholinesterase inhibitors for Alzheimer's disease. It is used for all stages of AD, from mild to severe. Rivastigmine. It can be used to treat mild to moderate Alzheimer's. Rivastigmine is unique in that it inhibits both acetylcholinesterase and butyrylcholinesterase, 2 enzymes that break down acetylcholine. It is available in both oral form as well as transdermal patch. Galantamine is used for mild to moderate Alzheimer's. In addition to inhibiting acetylcholinesterase, galantamine also modulates nicotinic acetylcholine receptors, which further boost cholinergic transmission. While these drugs can provide symptomatic relief, they do not cure Alzheimer's or stop its progression. Furthermore, their efficacy can vary among patients, and not everyone will benefit from their use. Common side effects of cholinesterase inhibitors include gastrointestinal symptoms like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, which can often be managed by dose adjustments or taking the medication with food. Parkinson's primarily affects the dopaminergic system, but cholinergic dysfunction, especially in the pedunculopontine nucleus, has been observed. This may play a role in some of the cognitive and behavioral symptoms seen in Parkinson's patients. The suspected imbalance is an increase in acetylcholine. In Parkinson's disease, the primary neuropathological changes involve loss of dopaminergic neurons in the substantia nigra, which leads to dopamine depletion in the striatum. This results in the characteristic motor symptoms of the disease, including tremor, rigidity, bradykinesia, and postural instability. However, the cholinergic system plays a significant role in regulating movement, and cholinergic dysfunction in PD contributes to both motor and non-motor symptoms. Some acetylcholine-related drugs are used as augmentative treatments to manage symptoms in PD. Anticholinergic medications reduce the action of acetylcholine in the brain. They have been used for many years to help manage the tremor-predominant Parkinson's disease, especially in younger patients where tremor is the main disabling symptom. Trihexylphenidine is historically one of the most commonly used anticholinergic drugs for PD. Benztropine or cogentin is another anticholinergic drug that has frequently been used to be effective against tremors and dystonia in PD. Orphenadrine and procyclidine are antimuscarinic agents that are effective in reducing tremors. Cholinesterase inhibitors, as we discussed earlier, are primarily used in Alzheimer's disease to decrease acetylcholine levels. However, they have also been employed in Parkinson's disease to help manage cognitive impairment or Parkinson's disease dementia. Rivastigmine is approved for the treatment of Parkinson's disease dementia. Another medication sometimes used for off-label use for dementia is donepezil. The relationship between schizophrenia and acetylcholine is a complex one. While dopamine dysregulation in the mesolimbic and mesocortical pathways is the most well-known neurotransmitter alteration, research has indicated that acetylcholine may also be involved in the disorder's pathophysiology. Let's take a look at the relationship between schizophrenia and acetylcholine. As we've learned, ACH acts on both muscarinic and nicotinic receptors in the brain. There's a high prevalence of smoking among individuals with schizophrenia, and one theory postulates that nicotine might help in alleviating some of the cognitive symptoms of schizophrenia by acting on nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. However, this is not considered clinical intervention recommendation, but could point to an underlying reason for such high nicotine use. There's evidence to suggest that certain nicotinic receptor subtypes might be dysregulated in the brains of individuals with schizophrenia. This dysregulation could be linked to the cognitive impairments observed in the disorder. Some studies have found alterations in muscarinic receptors in the brains of people with schizophrenia. However, the exact nature and significance of these alterations are still under investigation. Certain antipsychotic medications have anticholinergic effects, meaning they block the action of acetylcholine. This can lead to side effects such as dry mouth, blurred vision, constipation, and cognitive impairments. The cognitive effects of these drugs can be particularly concerning in schizophrenia, where cognitive dysfunction is already a core feature. Antipsychotics known to have the most anticholinergic effects include clozapine, thioridazine, chlorpromazine, methyltrimeprazine, and olanzapine. Just a few more thoughts pertaining to disorders. First, delirium. Acetylcholine deficiency has been postulated as a cause of delirium. Anticholinergic medications which block the action of acetylcholine are known to cause delirium, especially in older adults. Next, Huntington's disease. Alongside the predominant dopaminergic and glutaminergic disturbances, there's also evidence of cholinergic dysfunction in Huntington's, which might contribute to cognitive and motor symptoms. Understanding neurotransmitter acetylcholine is vital for several reasons, given its multifaceted role in both the peripheral and central nervous systems. Let's review some of the primary reasons why it's crucial to understand ACH. Muscle function. ACH is the primary neurotransmitter at neuromuscular junctions in skeletal muscles. It is essential for muscle contraction. Any disruption in acetylcholine function or release can lead to muscle weakness or paralysis. Examples include conditions like myasthenia gravis. Cognitive functions. ACH plays a significant role in attention, learning, and memory. Cholinergic pathways in the brain, particularly those from the basal forebrain to the cortex and hippocampus, are vital for cognitive processes. A decline in this system, as seen in Alzheimer's disease, is associated with memory impairment and other cognitive deficits. Autonomic functions. ACH is a primary neurotransmitter in the parasympathetic nervous system, which controls rest and digest functions. It helps regulate heart rate, gastrointestinal motility, bronchial constriction, and many other autonomic functions. Mood and behavior. Acetylcholine influences mood and behavior, with imbalances potentially contributing to conditions like depression and anxiety. Drug development and medical treatments. By understanding how ACH works, researchers and pharmaceutical companies have developed drugs that target the cholinergic system. These include treatments for Alzheimer's disease, cholinesterase inhibitors, myasthenia gravis, glaucoma, and many more. REM sleep. Acetylcholine plays a role in the regulation of the sleep-wake cycle, especially in promoting rapid eye movement (REM) sleep. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel to find out more about neurotransmitters within this video series.